Please come. Surbhi Pathak?
Right, sir.
Please sit down, Surbhi.
Thank you, sir.
So, Surbhi, tell the panel about yourself very briefly, your academic qualifications, your work experience, if any, and your main hobbies.
Sir, I am Surbhi Pathak. I come from Dehradun, Uttarakhand. I have completed my engineering from Visvesvaraya National Institute of Technology, Nagpur, in chemical engineering. Post that, I pursued MBA from Delhi University. Thereafter, I got an opportunity to work with Australia New Zealand Bank in Bangalore. And I have total 3.5 years of work experience in credit risk. My hobbies include watching business case study videos. I also enjoy watching tennis and doodling in my free time.
So, your MBA that you did from Delhi University,
Right.
Which institution?
So it was Department of Business Economics, South Campus.
All right. So, you took management also in your
Right, sir. My option
as
was
an
management.
optional subject.
Yes, sir.
So, tell me, what do you think is a basic difference between management and administration?
Sir, I believe administration is a part of management because management is at an overall level or a macro level. So right from the top leadership to the lower level employee, management is involved.
Are you
But,
sure?
Sir,
So, administration in the civil services
right.
is a subset of management of civil service management.
Sir, I think we can say that as well. But from what I have understood while reading about management, that there are different layers of hierarchy.
Okay. What are the difference between the two?
Sir, between
The administration and the management.
so for administration, I've read that the policies are made at the top level and then they are implemented at the lower level by different employees, for say. But management is also similar, that policies are made, but then each division or each geography, they might have different policies or schemes for that matter, depending on the product or the population that they are dealing with. So that's why I think they are slightly different.
So tell me, Surbhi, which of the two systems you think you are better cut out for, management or administration?
Sir, I believe I can do well in both, because right now what I did in my previous job, I was mostly implementing the higher level policies that were made. But as I grow in my career, I'll obviously rise to the positions where I myself will be in charge of making different schemes or bringing out changes. So I think it's a very evolutionary process, which I believe I can.
So there is one difference which I can say from our experience in the administration,
Right, sir.
and even management, that, in management, if you are, good in merit, the merit is respected and you may get promotion and you can rise to the top if you're doing very, very well. But administration is bound by certain rules, certain processes, and merit may not get so much of importance as in management. So which one you think is better suited for you? And if you think that you are meritorious, then why are you thinking of coming into administration?
Sir, because I believe administration also requires meritorious people. It's not, obviously rising to the different positions in hierarchy is important in this domain as well, but it is the work that I might get to do. I think that is what is driving me towards administration, because I've seen what is happening in management in my previous companies and I could do well there. So I believe if I utilize my capabilities here, I'll be able to do well here as well.
Okay. So you are from Uttarakhand.
Right, sir.
Now, Uttarakhand is working on how to increase its GDP and income, and they have targeted, they have launched a new campaign as to Uttarakhand at 2047. Have you heard about this particular project which has been taken up by the Uttarakhand government?
Sir, I believe they are focusing on different aspects for the 100-year of where Uttarakhand will stand after 100 years of independence. First is the industrial policy they are bringing out, wherein the main focus would be on the MSMEs, the small industries, especially from the mountain areas. And they also have different schemes, for example, one district, two product. So because every district in Uttarakhand has unique capabilities. For example, Dehradun, for that matter, is good in mushroom as well as bakery products. So similar to what we see in Himachal Pradesh, where they are leveraging apple cultivation, Uttarakhand is also going in that way. The third, I would say, is the horticulture, because we have got as an ecological advantage in terms of national parks, for example, Nanda Devi and Valley of Flowers. So they are leveraging on those capabilities. And fourth, I would say infrastructure also, in terms of development of Char Dham Pariyojana, and then the Dehradun Delhi Expressway, which would cater to different people in terms of providing employment and even connectivity issues to the mountain areas.
So you are the DM of one of the districts of Uttarakhand, high altitude district, and there is a disaster. There is a glacier or there is a flooding the way it happened a few years ago.
Right.
Now, what are the steps that you would take immediately when you realize that there is a flood or there is a natural disaster happening in your district? Tell me immediately 4-5 steps.
So first, I would like to see what is the challenge, which type of disaster it is, and how much evacuation do we need. So in terms of people living in the area, their evacuation would be the first priority, and the second thing would be the damage that happened to different places. Once the disaster is over, what sort of steps can I take in terms of rehabilitating people to which locations?
So you have missed one step. You evacuated before the disaster came, right? And then you came to when the disaster has gone. But in between the disaster, people are trapped. They don't have food.
Right.
They need something by which they can, in the water, the boats and all. What exactly would you do when the floods are there?
So I think we normally use NDRF forces to evacuate or to provide rehabilitation measures during the time of disaster. So for example, in 2013, Kedarnath floods.
Rehabilitation is the last stage.
So rehabilitation in terms of providing them food during the disaster, in terms of
making them survive. That
right,
is
wherever they are trapped. So they need to survive at least till the time any forces are there to.
So in Uttarakhand, these disasters will keep happening, or you think there should be some major step to be taken to prevent these disasters? What could be done using technology?
So I believe there has to be a balance between economic growth and sustainable.
But you said you will put up a lot of industry in Uttarakhand.
Right, but
the environment is so fragile.
Right.
So these disasters will happen if you increase your GDP. The land is so small.
But so there comes the importance of productivity as well and efficiency, because as a development can also be done sustainably. For example, proper environment assessment and tourism industry, for example, is thriving in Uttarakhand. Even though it's a fragile economy, but if it's done in a proper way, it's very useful.
Yeah. Surbhi, is it not? How do you pronounce your name?
Sir, SURBHI, that was right.
Okay, Surbhi. Tell me, you see, over the years, there has been a number of legislations to improve the lot of the women in different areas. So, few legislations, can you tell me?
Sir, one that I can recall is with respect to the safety, prevention of harassment at workplace, that came after the Vishakha guidelines.
That came out after
2013.
After Vishakha guidelines.
Right.
Okay.
Based on Vishakha guidelines.
Mm-hmm. Who was Vishakha?
Sir, I believe, if I'm not wrong, she was a social worker in Rajasthan district who raised her voice against the child marriages that were happening in Rajasthan.
Mm-hmm. Okay. And so Vishakha guidelines, and then you said about the harassment at workplace.
Right.
One, excellent. Then?
So then I believe SEBI came up with clause 49, wherein they had mentioned that out of 3 non-executive directors in the companies, 1 has to be women, so that there is gender parity at higher levels and the glass ceiling that we call can be broken. And it was also made in a formal law when Companies Law 2013 was brought out.
Mm-hmm.
So those are
any representation in Panchayat, if you remember? Through legislation?
I think 1/3 representation.
Something must be there.
73rd
Okay.
Amendment.
So, do you think these Vishakha guidelines are still applicable, or they are no longer there?
Sir,
I mean, they are no longer useful there.
no, sir, they will be useful because I think over the years their form has evolved. For example, we have internal complaints committee in the various companies, which from my personal experience, I also have seen that they are very helpful. And especially the facilities that we provide to women in terms of maternity leave and the creche at the workplace, they are still very useful in terms of increasing the female labor force participation and gender parity.
You have put Indian police service at your second preference.
Yes,
Do you have some dreams which you would like to execute, some plans which you would like to execute if you get selected and join and remain there as a IPS officer?
Sir, there are some that I can count right now. First is, of course, the women's safety, especially in the recent times. And second, I believe with respect to police reforms, for example, under trial, there are a lot of under trials that we have. So over the years, especially not at an initial scale, but over the years, I would like to contribute on that front.
On under trial prisoner also, there must be some Supreme Court case or guideline or some decision. Do you remember? Any important decision on under trial prisoners, which led to the release of more than 40,000 under trial prisoners?
Sir, I cannot recall.
That is Visvesvaraya Khatun versus State of Bihar.
2010.
Okay.
And I think President also has recently highlighted the fact that we should reduce the under trial. jail.
So I was asking about your dreams and plans. So you said that to improve the lots of women as a IPS officer.
Right.
Is it not? Anything more concrete, more direct,
So
which you can do with immediate results or something?
Sir, incorporation of technology, I think we can also do in IPS. For example, increasing the surveillance and, for example, facial recognition technology.
Or make the service, make the policing more transparent. Can it be done? A bit more transparent?
Yes.
How do you do that? To make it more transparent. Working of police more transparent.
Sir, I believe it can be done at multiple scales. First is from the officials itself. The daily tracking that they do in terms of registering cases, it can be done online so that once any case is registered, it could be viewed by other people as well if needed. It would also help in expediting the case so that the victim is brought to justice. Secondly, I believe reporting, for example, in media or in public, that can be also done in a transparent way.
Ever tried to find out about uniform civil code? Is it practical? What do you say?
Sir,
If you have applied your mind. If not, then no issue.
Sir, as far as I know, I think Uttarakhand government was also it also formed a committee to bring about uniform.
No, that's true. But I'm asking your view that whether it is practical and whether it can be done, and what do you say that what will happen if we have a uniform civil code? Your views.
Sir, as a concept, I believe it's really good in terms of providing homogeneous rules in a country. But given the diversity of India in terms of different states, even different districts, and different communities, as of now, I believe we are not yet ready for it to be practically implemented because different communities have to be brought in the same line. And
what all things will get covered in it?
Sir, the rules regarding the marriages,
Marriage,
interfaith, intercaste marriages.
Marriage is one. What
Marriages
else?
is one. Sir, family-related rules. If there's any issue with respect to breaking of a family, I believe it can be used, and it will also bring in harmony in general.
No. I am asking what are the subjects which will be covered under the Uniform Civil Code?
So marriage is only I can.
Achha, okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Surbhi,
So,
you are interested in business case study videos. So one of the latest happenings is the Twitter acquisition by Musk
yes, sir.
and the fallout of this acquisition.
Thanks, sir.
So tell me, if you analyze this business model of Twitter acquisition, so what is your conclusion? Where he went right or wrong because the market crashed,
Right, sir.
Tesla lost.
Yes.
So tell me about your analysis of acquisition and the business model that he was trying to build.
Sure, I think Musk used leverage buyout process to actually buy stakes in the company. He was not the $44 billion that we were hearing were not his amount. He had actually pledged the shares of the company itself and paid some amount from his Tesla shares. So I think that was one of the good or innovative thing that our leader can do. But then the fallout of his policies, for example, charging $8 a month for the blue tick, and then asking employees to work overtime, and then the firing of employees that eventually happened. Therein, I think the skills of a leader, he lacked in those steps. And then he also, I think it was more of an irrational exuberance of a leader in terms of sidelining his original business, Tesla, SpaceX, because the investors of those companies, I think, they were also, they had issues with the losses that he was having. So I think overall, it was a very expedited move, I would say, because it also had an impact on the stock market and in terms of losses that people had. So unless he has a very good follow-up plan to revive the company, but I believe there could be revival as well, because Steve Jobs, when he was called back to Apple, he also took some similar steps for the betterment of the company. But I believe only time will tell whether this is a good step.
And he called himself as a nano manager. So what do you understand by this term nano manager?
Sir, I believe there are different layers of managerial skills. For example, micromanager. And from there, I can recall that nano manager is a person who actively takes part in different activities that is happening in the company.
Going into minutest of details.
Right. Yeah.
All right. Recently, there was a malware attack on All India Institute of Medical Sciences.
Right.
So what are the lessons learned out of malware attack? What should be done? And is India doing anything by way of law making?
Right. So first, I believe the critical infrastructure that we have, we need to strengthen. One thing I found in AIMS that they had backups as well, which were not attacked. So that was, I think, good step that we had taken earlier. But eventually, the data of different Indian citizens was compromised. So we did lack on efficient safety measures. And in terms of the measures that we are taking, I think we have certain as a process wherein we are protecting our key infrastructure, for example, power or even medical data. The other steps, I think, more of technology we can use in terms of creating different firewalls so that the attack cannot be directly, it cannot directly jeopardize our data. Then we also have data localization processes these days, wherein the data, critical data of key Indian or all the Indian citizens has to be stored within India. So those are the things.
Okay, good. What is blue economy?
So blue economy, I think, refers to the efficient use of marine resources and the export or import via sea routes, I think, is what is called blue economy.
Where will you use chemical engineering knowledge in administration?
Sir, direct knowledge, I believe it wouldn't be of much use, but the analytical and the aptitude bent I have received in terms of 4 years of my engineering, I think I can leverage that. So for example, if there's any chemical related disaster, we had one in styrene case in Visakhapatnam during the COVID lockdown. I would be better able to judge the situation in terms of severity, in terms of what gases were leaked and how harmful they are, and what immediate steps I need to evacuate people and bring them to safety. And I think that is how I can leverage.
Recently, there was a news about death of children due to consumption of
Cough syrup.
some syrup. Now, how do you analyze this pharma industry in India if such cases bring bad name to us? What is lacking? What is missing in our checks?
Sir, first is the efficient regulation. For example, in the cough syrup, that ethylene glycol was found, which is not a palatable compound. We do not directly use it, but I believe it passed the scrutiny, which it should not have. And so regulation is one. The second, I think, is periodic monitoring. So over different times, random checks or surveillance we need to do. And also in terms of the licenses that we provide to these companies, 5-year or 10-year, that has to be regularly updated in terms of, because over the time new chemicals are being made and derived. So what sort of chemicals do they use, and is it healthy for in general or not, that we need to bring in.
What are 3 lessons that we have learned after COVID, especially in the health sector? 3 improvements, you can say, that has come about in the health sector after COVID.
So first is more spending on healthcare sector as percentage of GDP. We need to increase that. Secondly, I believe the use of technology in terms of we need to involve more citizens in Ayushman Bharat or National Digital Health Mission, so that there is a centralized repository. And because the surveillance that we did using Arogya Setu was very beneficial, especially in a crisis like pandemic. So once we have a data set ready, it could be very beneficial. The third is more spending on the research and development. For example, the pharma companies that we have. We are the 3rd largest pharma company in terms of volume, but in terms of value, we are 14th. So I believe PLI schemes or more such bulk drug parks that we are creating, we need to expedite that for like quick results.
Is AI good? Artificial intelligence, is it a good technology? You can give me checks and balances that are needed in place for AI.
Right. So at an overall level, I say it is beneficial, but with a caveat that how it is being used, that is also important. So in terms of benefits, I believe data is the new oil, as we say, which can be leveraged using AI. For example, different schemes wherein we are comparing states as per aspirational district program. I've read that data is very important in that, in terms of improving different states and their parameters. Secondly, AI can also be used in defense technology or any, for example, surveillance across the borders or in creating new technology. But there are issues, for example, privacy issues, then there are secrecy issues, and data is also called that it might overtake human mind as well. For example, we have recent chat GPT, if I remember correctly, which can mimic a human mind. So that can be negatively used as well. So there has to be a check and balance in terms of regulation.
All right. Last question I want to ask you is on India getting the presidency of G20 and global platform on artificial intelligence.
Right.
So how will it benefit India?
So both.
Both. So now India is presiding over not only G20 but global platform on AI. Are you aware of that or not?
Sir, I'm aware of G20, but GPay,
okay.
I remember.
So you can read up on that also. So how will the presidency of G20 benefit India?
Sir, I believe it would, given that we are 5th largest economy and the largest democracy, our say in the world would increase in terms of different parameters. For example, first is the economic aspects, because G20 is primarily for the economic aspects. So in terms of inflation increasing in the world or the debt vulnerabilities, India can cater to that. The second is the food security issues, especially after the Russia-Ukraine war. And third, I believe, is bringing together the voice of Global South and the climate actions that are needed, especially from the developed countries. I think in those parameters, India can leverage its position and bring out a better economic scenario in 2023.
Okay, Surbhi.
So,
you have studied in Visvesvaraya National Institute of Technology.
Right.
Tell me something about Sir Mokshgundam Visvesvaraya. Why do we call him sir? And his contribution?
Right, sir. Sir, I think he was the Diwan of Mysore Kingdom, and he was given knighthood by British, so that's why he was sir. And he contributed in terms of different irrigation canals, for example, Krishna Raja Sagar Dam. And he was, based on his capabilities, he was also sent to other countries, Yemen, I think by British, to improve their irrigation prospects. And I think that's why he was Engineers Day in India is commemorated after his birthday, 15th September.
Which day?
15th September.
Okay.
And surprisingly, it's also celebrated in Tanzania and Sri Lanka. So I believe his.
Okay, did he get any civilian awards from?
I'm not
Other
aware of
countries?
civilian award, but based on his contribution, especially he
Any
was
engineer who has got Bharat Ratna?
engineer.
Any engineer? Can you name, not any, can you name an engineer who got Bharat Ratna? He was the one.
Yes,
Okay, good. The remuneration which you are getting at present is approximately 2,40,000. If you join any civil service, be it IAS, IPS or whatever, you will get only 40% of it. So why IAS? Why civil services?
So just one note, I'm not working anymore. I have left my job.
Anyway, just prior to that, say about
Right.
few months back, I think
Right.
it is written continuing.
So at the
Present.
time
Yeah,
I
at
was
that
working.
time when you
Right,
filled
sir.
up the form,
Right,
you
sir.
might be continuing there.
Right,
Anyway, so it was 2,40,000 at that time. When you left few days back only, you might have left
Right,
because while filling the form, you were getting that particular
Right, sir.
remuneration. So why IAS?
Sir, I believe monetary aspect is one part, but not everything. So based on the work that I did enjoy my work, but I believe the impact that I can create is only corresponding to the 100, 200 million of population in terms of the products that I used to work on, especially credit card and others. But here, I will have direct connect with the people and understand the problems at a larger scale.
Okay, Punjab National Bank scam, you might be knowing. Main reasons for that, which were the reasons that this scam happened?
Sir, I'm not aware, as in I cannot recall
Misuse
right
of
now.
SWIFT, can you recall? Misuse of SWIFT? What is SWIFT?
SWIFT is the international monetary transaction software that we
This
use.
is a quote, what for?
Sorry.
Anyway, so misuse of SWIFT was one, and another was that ICI did not exercise its power. Can you recall now?
Sir,
ICI did not exercise its function, rather, not power.
okay.
Do you know about Fugitive Economic Offenders Act?
Right, sir. Sir,
What
I'm
do you
aware.
mean by Fugitive Economic Offender?
Sir, the person who has defrauded, I think, above 1 crore and he's left
Yeah,
the
1
country.
crore or more.
And he's
fraud.
left the country
Okay.
to escape.
So why these fugitive economic offender prefer the Caribbean countries?
Sir, I believe one is they do not have better laws in terms of extradition. So if we go there, they might not be easily willing to extradite them back. And these countries are also tax havens. So the money that they had used might be stored in those banks in the Caribbean nations.
Along with this Fugitive Economic Offenders Act, immediately after that, an amendment was made in the Companies Act. What was that amendment? And an authority was created in a section related with the Companies Act.
Sir, I believe you're referring to 2013 amendment where serious fund investigation officer.
So, what
was,
exactly the authority was?
uh,
NFRA, can you recall?
a National Financial Reporting.
So under which
Authority.
section of the Companies Act?
So section I cannot.
Okay, no problem. Demonetization regarding.
Right.
So Supreme Court's judgment 2 days back. What did Supreme?
Sir, in 4:1 judgment, they had said that demonetization was it was legal to implement it.
And one
Yes.
and one was
B.V. Nagaratna, I think.
okay.
Right.
So on what ground she was? She said that this was not a good step.
Sir, first I believe she said it should have been brought in a form of a law from the parliament. And secondly, the consultations with RBI that the government say was due in 6 months was continuous in 6 months. I believe that was not the case. So she had said that RBI just gave permission in like 1 or 2 days. So that was an expedited move. And it also mentioned that there was a term in the judgment as discussed.
Yeah, two terms were there. Which were those terms which she mentioned in the judgment?
Sir, one I can recall is as discussed with RBI and as agreed by RBI, I believe. Not very sure. Sir.
Anyway, now related with your chemical engineering and also due to the fact that you have studied in Delhi. So, what do you mean by greenhouse gases? Huh? Now, can you tell me whether at all greenhouse gases effect is a necessary evil? What do you mean by greenhouse gases? And whether at all we can say that greenhouse gases effect is a necessary evil?
So greenhouse gases are essentially the gases that are trapped in the atmosphere, and they increase the temperature in terms of global warming. So the potential that they have in, for example, CO2 and methane.
No, first of all, I said whether at all it is a necessary evil. You have mentioned partly while answering the question.
Sir, necessary evil.
These are trapped and this increase the temperature.
Right,
and that's why it makes the life possible on Earth. Can we say like that?
I believe we can.
Yes, it is like that. But if it is enhanced, then it becomes global warming.
So, yes, sir.
Okay, anyway. So, as we see, Delhi is one of the most polluted capital cities of the world.
Yes,
okay? And there are various steps which have been taken up by the government, particularly, during the past 2 decades and also during the past 2-3 years. So can you tell me those steps which were taken by the government during past 2 decades? Had those measures were not taken, then situation would have been much worse as it is today. So the steps which have been taken by the government in this regard during the past 2 decades and also during the past 3-4 years. My question is clear?
So it's clear.
And had those measures were not taken, situation would have been much worse than it is today. So starting from say about 2000, which steps were taken?
So from 2000, I cannot recall, but recent steps, for example, Commission on Air Quality Management.
No, could it be due to introduction of CNG buses?
Yeah, right, in terms of infrastructure, yes.
Could it be due to introduction of metro? Then come to the recent years, about 3-4 years. What could those be?
So as you rightly said, in terms of CNG buses and...
No. These have been taken since 2000,
So.
2000 onwards. So past 2 decades. Now specifically during past 3-4 years, which steps were taken by the government, be it the central government or be it the state government related with this?
So I believe one is the graded response action plan that we have.
Oh,
based
that
on
is
the,
action plan. हो गया अब क्या करें? That's related with that.
And so there are smoke towers that are installed. I believe there are only 2 installed, but the impact that they have is not very efficient.
No. One more question, last question. That Lokayukt Act, do you know any idea about that?
Right, sir. So
the bill which was passed, say about 4-5 days back only in the State Assembly of Maharashtra. Do you have any idea about that?
Sir, I don't know.
Okay, thank you.
Thank you, sir.
Okay, SURBHI. Tell me something about Agneepath scheme and why there was so much opposition.
Sir, Agneepath scheme was primarily launched to bring in the fresh young talent in the army from especially 17 to 21 years. And one objective was also to reduce the pension burden that the government has in terms of revenue expenditure. I think those were the main reasons. The main reasons for the protest, I believe, is people were not satisfied with the age criteria. And the other thing was once they are out of the scheme, so for example, it had only 25% retention as far as I can recall. So people had issue with respect to the people who might not be retained, what will happen with their career prospects. That was the main issue. But I believe there were steps taken in terms of reassuring them that the training that they would receive over 4 years would be very helpful in their future. And they would also given specific benefits in terms of different jobs that they might have after 4 years.
What do you mean by moonlighting, and what's your view on moonlighting?
So moonlighting recently came in the news because when people have one job for the day, but they are also having another job just to augment their income. And I believe the companies are against it. But as per my view, I believe there are both pros and cons, because especially during the pandemic, the income of people fell with respect to pay cuts and the amount that they needed for survival was not sufficient. So they opted for two or more jobs. But from a perspective of a company, because we are legally bound to only serve one company at a time, and the productivity or the efficiency would reduce when we are committed to two different tasks. So that's why they had issues with moonlighting.
So once you become a civil servant, you would opt for moonlighting?
Sir, no, I would not.
Okay. Let's say if you were to be the foreign minister of India, how would you settle disputes with China?
Sir, I'll just take a few seconds. Sir, with China, I think we have multiple issues. One is on the border issue. Since we do not have a demarcated line which is acceptable by both the countries, I believe I would start with that. But engaging with Chinese on this issue is very, I believe it's not very easy, because over the years we have tried, but we have not succeeded. But I believe it's an engagement on a regular basis is what it would be the way forward. The second would be on the trade related aspects, because we have trade deficit with China, even though we have banned different apps and we have restricted, or we have that, I think, quality or control order in terms of imports, but the import had still rising. So I believe more investment in terms of local manufacturing can curb that gap. The third would be the engagement on international forums, for example, UNSC, where China regularly used to block India's demand for classifying terrorists from Pakistan. So I believe engagement again on that front is needed.
Okay, thank you. I pass on to Chairman, sir.
So, Surbhi, we have covered a lot of ground. Any topic, any subject which you think has not been covered, and you would want us to ask a question from any such topic which is also your favorite subject?
So I think most of the topics are covered. I would still request you to have some questions on my hobbies. Sir did ask, but if there are other questions.
All right. So I don't know whether any question on watching business case studies videos. So which is the business case study that you have seen and liked the most? And what is it about?
So the recent retail war that we see in terms of DMart or Amazon, and with the rise of Reliance specifically in this domain, I think is what excites me the most.
So what is the success story of DMart?
Sir, first, I believe is the economies of scale, because the orders that they put in for their stores, it was at a very large scale compared to the local stores that we have. Once we have a very large lot of order, the amount that we pay generally falls. So therein they could gather more margin with respect to local Kirana stores. And secondly, the different offers that they had devised for people, I think that also attracted people towards the stores.
So thank you, Surbhi. You may kindly proceed and we'll call you after some time for giving the feedback.
Thank you, sir.
So Surbhi, now we are in an informal session. You can speak your heart, you can discuss anything that you like. So before I, on behalf of panel, tell you about our feedback, what is your own self-assessment about your interview today?
Sir, I have mixed reviews. So in some questions, I think I was able to answer well. But few questions, for example, first question on the environment steps and the steps, so I think I missed those. And specific details, for example, laws on women's safety and others, I think I need to brush up on that front. And again, sir's question regarding China issue and how do you deal with. So I think as a foreign minister or someone in foreign ministry, I need to have more precise and important arguments. So I need to work on this.
Okay, good. So well, it's good that one should never be complacent about one's performance. The overall assessment of your performance has been very good. You have impressed the panel, right? And I can say that it was an interesting conversation between you and the panel.
Right.
Now, when the panel has this feeling, yeah, it is, we could carry on with this conversation for some more time. Time is a constraint, 30 minutes. So that is a good impression about the candidate. कि हाँ, और एक है कि भाई जल्दी 30 मिनट हो और the candidate let him or her go. So it was interesting because of your personality. You have very good communication ability. Your choice of use of words, the words that you used, they were very, I would say, apt. That made your expression and communication even better. The one thing about your delivery is that the answers were at times lengthier, right? What you talked was sense. What you talked was sense. It was not out of context. But maybe you tried to explain it more elaborately, which is not required. You are also structured in many questions, 1, 2, 3, right? But in some questions, the priority was not correct.
I could figure out that.
Yes. So, give you one example. I will give you how you should be convinced about what we say. We are not just making a statement and then you go away. Now, the honorable member asked you about the lessons of COVID. You did mention 1, 2, 3, but what were those 1, 2, 3 were not so important, right? You can see your video when you go back. Now we discussed among ourselves. If I were you, I would have said, sir, number one, as which you also mentioned, the health sector has come on the center stage, priority of this country. People have realized that health sector is not so developed as it should have been, and we had a good opportunity. Number two, the digitalization, whether it is e-commerce, whether it is e-education, whether it is IT technology, the way the whole India kept running, right? Whether it is the distribution system, nobody raised a hue and cry, oh, we are not getting our food grains and this and that, everything went off, right, smoothly. It is because of services, e-services. And thirdly is that India has got a lesson of that self-dependence is the answer. The Prime Minister also keeps telling about Atmanirbhar. And in a way, we did not have masks in the beginning when it came. We imported from here and there. And within a year's time, we had excess of exporting masks. Just to give. So self-dependence not only in health sector, but also in all the areas. Because no export, no import, nothing was happening. So we had to fend, for ourselves. So this is just to give you an idea that structuring is good. लेकिन क्या बोल रहे हैं उसमें आप, वो भी तो important है. G20 का आपको बहुत अच्छा आंसर नहीं था. You mentioned few things, but they were not you should read it. It's a very, very, very important question, and many of you would be asked this question because it's still ongoing.
Yes.
Now, one of the things is that it is an opportunity for India to showcase India before the world. इतने लोग 20 कंट्रीज के लोग आ रहे हैं. यू आर हैविंग डिफरेंट समिट्स हियर एंड देयर, ईयर लॉन्ग कुछ ना कुछ होता चल रहा जाए. उदयपुर में कुछ हुआ, शेरपा मिले. Now all what is happening, we are able to showcase India, see our soft powers, see our culture. In today's newspaper says कि India is ready to show its social sector. So एक मौका है कि आपके घर में कोई आ रहा है तो आप उसको इंडिया के बारे में, so you read something more on that, so that your answer has content, quality of content. So communicating well is one aspect, but communicating a good content in a structured manner, in a concise manner, and yet we are able to understand what you're mentioning. You should try to achieve that. Few more points here and there. In situational questions, you should think before you start. You have all the right to. I told you about that you are the DM of, say, some district, Nainital or whatever, and you are having flood. Listen to the question. Now, what exactly would you do? Now, anyone cannot just comprehend and immediately start. You may start with the least priority thing and then end up with the most important thing. If you think for 2, 3, 4 seconds and structure yours, flood aaya kya ho? Now, that's why I prompted, I said, what about when the floods come? जब आ जाएंगे तब क्या होगा? सबसे बड़ा तो रेस्क्यू है. फर्स्ट इज प्रिवेंशन. यू सेड इवैक्यूएट करूंगी मैं. सेकेंड इज रेस्क्यू. कैसे लोगों की जानें बचाएंगे. और थर्ड उनको रिहैबिलिटेट करेंगे जो बच गए, उनको भाई उनके घर वर उजड़ गए. नाउ यू बीइंग फ्रॉम उत्तराखंड, दिस कुड बी अ पॉसिबल क्वेश्चन. इवन इफ यू हैव नॉट लिव्ड देयर, उत्तराखंड के और भी क्वेश्चन आ सकते हैं. यूनिफॉर्म सिविल कोड इज वन मोर. पॉपुलेशन पॉलिसी भी स्टेट ने कहा कि हम करेंगे. नाउ दीज आर ऑल हॉट टॉपिक्स. उत्तराखंड at 25, which I mentioned, they have already done 22 now. In another 25 years or 47, what would they do? You answered it very well. And you knew what are the areas where Uttarakhand is going to and should. Management administration, Surbhi, administration is very large. Management is a subset of administration. Okay. Administration is rule bound. Policies. Management is more flexible. Right? Management can be applied in administration. Management has more human content. Human relations. You have read MBA, there was a subject on human relations, management. HR. It's not just HR for recruiting and all. There is more element of human relations.
Organization behavior.
Correct. And in administration, the human aspect should be important, but it is not. It is more rule bound. I may be liking my junior, he's excellent, but I may just keep patting his back, but I will not be able to offer him anything because we are rule bound. That's why I said merit and non-merit. So you should also give some kind of impression when I asked you management or administration. Sir, I have done management, but I'll apply management in administration. And you said equally I'm okay with both. But sir, administration is a very larger area. But since you had already taken a stand that management is bigger and administration is smaller. So somebody can ask you, why are you going to a smaller area? ठीक है ना? So आपने initial में ही उसको थोड़ा सा वो गलत कर दिया. So बाकी everything was fine. And if you have any questions, please. And another thing which honorable members noted is that for every sentence you say, I believe, I think, I believe, I think. Just remove these two words and start immediately. So, Surbhi, what is your this? Sir, India must do this. India and China have good trade relations with each other. And why do you have to say, I believe that India should do this, I think. The moment you say, I believe, I think, you are not very sure about it. बिल्कुल बैंक नहीं आता तो साफ कह दीजिए कि सर आई एम सॉरी, आई वोंट बी एबल टू इलैबोरेट फर्दर, आई कांट डू जस्टिस विद दिस क्वेश्चन. बट अगर आप बोल रही हैं तो आई थिंक, आई गेस, ये जैसे एक्सप्रेशन होते हैं ना, आप जब अपनी और फ्रेंड्स के साथ, कलीग्स के साथ, कॉर्पोरेट्स में भी आप लंच करती हुई, वो आई बिलीव दैट मूवी इज वेरी गुड. सो आई बिलीव को हटा दो.
I think it's coming from there, but I'll work on it.
Yes. So there has to be a shift just for those 30 minutes.
आदत पड़ जाती है ना, तो आपकी आदत पड़ी हुई है.
तो इसको थोड़ा रिहर्स करिए. When is your interview?
I don't have a date.
Okay, so you have time, right? Any question you have from us?
Sir, the question regarding remuneration and why do I want to come?
देखिए, इसका कोई स्टैंडर्ड आंसर नहीं हो सकता है. अगर स्टैंडर्ड आंसर होगा और उसी को सभी देंगे तो वो कहेंगे कि एवरीबडी से लाइक दैट। आप अपना जो ऑनेस्टली जो इसके बारे में सोचते हैं वही आंसर दीजिए जिसको कि आप जस्टिफाई कर सकें।
Because I did have an answer for why IAS and why this service, but when it comes with remuneration, then
रेम्यूनरेशन ही अकेला थोड़ा ही ना बात है, अकेला चीज जो आपने पार्टली उसको आंसर भी किया, ऐसा नहीं है। और भी सोचिए क्या और बेटर आंसर हो सकता है और जिसको आप जस्टिफाई भी कर सकते। उससे रिलेटेड क्वेश्चंस भी फिर हो सकते हैं कुछ, उनको कैसे करेंगे।
Surbhi, rising stature of India, not only G20 but also presidentship of global partnership on AI and SEO and so many others. So you should read up because that is indicative of India's position in the world today. So you should know who are the visiting dignitaries, who will be chief guest on 26th January, things like that, and India's rising role in global affairs.
Yes.
You can, I'll just supplement by, there could be another question. You think that India is gradually becoming a Vishwa Guru, aiming towards becoming Vishwa Guru? You have heard this word? So, partly yes, because many incidents have happened in the past. COVID mein you offered vaccines, so vaccine diplomacy. So you let this impression that, you know, we are the suppliers. वैसे भी India is a land of pharmacy, as they say, world's pharmacy. Second is the Prime Minister offered we can feed the world because with the food, though it backfired and later on the production came down, but at least the message went to the people that, you know, India can feed the world. Then Ukraine and Russia, oh, we are ready with if India intervenes and settles the dispute between them and intervenes in makes. So all these things are that globally India is. This could be a possible question. Right? What else?
So with respect to your question, as a foreign minister, how do I answer?
Yeah,
that?
your
Given that-
answer was quite generic. So try to go in depth on that answer and try to give some innovative views on that answer. It was quite generic and you were quite surprised with that. So just think and plan on that answer.
That is
On the question of management, the question which the Honorable Member asked you is a very relevant one for you. Anyone would have this 2,25,000 ये चौक ध्यान में आएगा. This could be a possible question. You are seeking an answer for that, right?
the remuneration.
Yes, I was in the same situation as you may be. I had done MBA, I was working, and I was earning much more than what I would be getting in the IAS, right? So this dilemma, but it was not a dilemma in my case at all because I was passionate, come what may, right? So your answer has to be accordingly. You cannot say, yes, sir, I will have very less money. It may be difficult to break even and to keep, you know, the both ends meet. But anyway, sir, I've jumped into the fray now, I can't help it. You can't say that, right? So you have to go in favor of the civil services, right? So you come out with the virtues of civil services. The scope in the corporate sector is so limited, sir. Here you have a larger vision. Your decision can influence a large number. You become a leader right in the beginning. You will not become hopefully आप बन सकती हो, CNMD भी बन जाओगी, लेकिन you can't be sure about becoming CMD. But you can be the boss of the district within 5 years, 6 years, 7 years. Right? So leadership, you don't have to mention all this. And sir, the kind of, as far as monetary thing is concerned, it is correct that you need money to survive, but the kind of, the perks, the kind of facilities which I am told are available in the civil services, they are, for me, they are more than sufficient.
जॉब सेटिस्फेक्शन नहीं है, भले ही अमाउंट उतना मिल रहा हो, and this will give you an opportunity to be part of the system of the governance of the country. Now, how country is governed, उससे related answers भी तैयार करने होंगे.
So, you mean to the virtues of the civil services cannot be compared with the money of corporate sector. Basically, you have to project that point. Not that I'm not bothered about money or sir I don't. वो भी नहीं आप कैसे. So and ये भी बताना है कि you're not running after money. I'm not actually. I will find satisfaction. संतोष कहते हैं ना. अपने इंडिया में कहते हैं संतोष होना बहुत जरूरी. उसी से सुख है ना. इवन अंबानी से अगर संतोष नहीं है तो वो एलन मस्क से कंपेयर करेगा. एलन मस्क को अमेजोन के सीईओ से करेगा. न जाने काका और रात भर सो ही नहीं पाएंगे कि मैं नंबर 2 हो गया. सो वट एवर यू हैव यू शुड हैव संतोष एंड सेटिस्फैक्शन. राइट. Any other questions?
Sir, question on the case study and for it, fine. I need to.
Which question?
Sir, the Twitter one, Elon Musk, how he.
Elon Musk. See, he conducted a survey online whether he should continue.
Whether we should
Now,
quit.
do you do it without any purpose? Because ultimately, 57% people said that he should quit. He never did that. So, what kind of business model are you projecting before people? What you do is not serious. You simply create panic and then back out. So, I expected you to mention of various things. Nano manager. Now, if you go into smallest of details, there is a book called 2-Minute Manager, which became very popular, I think, during 30 years back. But nowadays, the concept of management is completely different. Nano manager in a different area may be all right, going into intricate details of writing an algorithm. But when you are holding a big company and say that I am a nano manager, now this is where I wanted you to analyze and come out with the business model, comments on the business model adopted by Musk. His steps and his statements have affected the company. Now, this is not how one would visualize a successful company. So, this is what I meant.
Okay, sir.
Conducting online pool and making no use of it. What does it indicate? Then similarly on this syrup, pharma industry and cough syrup thing, I think I asked you what went wrong, where this issue is still under investigation. I would have preferred you to, on this aspect, that issue is still under examination. But yes, what basic checks in pharma sector are required, you mentioned some of them. But the starting point should have been that episode is yet to be confirmed whether it is due to this, but yes, basic checks are required there.
So I should mention the reason of
Yes.
case first. Okay, sir.
अच्छा साड़ी का कलर ये
सर ये नहीं चेंज करना है. First.
अच्छा आप डिफरेंट स्टेट्स में रहे हैं, ध्यान रखना चारों से रिलेटेड क्वेश्चन यूपी.
साइबर सिक्योरिटी के बारे में आपने जिक्र ये टर्म नहीं यूज की. साइबर सिक्योरिटी, व्हेन साइबर क्राइम्स आर देयर, then cyber security takes over. So, in reply, you never use the term cyber security. The biggest lesson we have learned is to implement cyber security in all the government setups.
Thank you, Surbhi. Wish you all the best.
All the best.